from last week on how everyone did and so forth. Um, the code that you had last week is the exact same one that you have this week, and you'll have the same code for the entirety of this. If you forget it, message me and I'll tell you what your code is. But it'll be the same one. So if you want to pin it to yourself, whatever, to remember it, that's fine. So let me open that up real quick too. And if you don't know what it is, I posted in the I Nocturne text chat. I also pinned it there so you can look at it later. So this time I only looked at 11 runs. Obviously we did a lot more than 11, but I only looked at this last half. So if you screwed up in the first half, you were spared. But I won't always do it that way, since everyone at this point should have at least 10 hours of practice. So that being said, you know, next week or tomorrow I should say, I can definitely look at the first half if I wanted to in terms of performance and whatever. So keep that in mind. It will always be the second half that you have to actually do good. The other thing is the survival rate is pretty stable. As you can see from performance from last week and this week, some people did better. Some people did not as better. They did worse. But that's just how it goes. So um, the other thing is I changed the way that the points were assigned slightly. The difference is that last week I didn't give people extra points for alive. Basically, if you last week the way I calculated life points was if you were alive at phase when we had a phase wipe. But because first week we didn't get the phase wipes very often, we died to other things. No one got too many points in that. This time, however, I gave you points if you were alive when I called the wipe. So when the boss was either I called the wipe or we died to the mech phase, if you're alive at that point, I gave you a point. So most people got a lot more points than normal because of that. So don't necessarily compare your score from last week to this week. Um, Again, it's always relative to the people else in your group and in your category. Same before, there's like two basic categories of players: those who are assigned to mech roles and those who are assigned to DPS. And it's roughly half our mech, half our DPS. So if you were assigned to DPS, basically your main points, you could get a maximum of 11 points for being alive. Basically, at every pool we did, you didn't die unnecessary to anything. You were basically alive the entire time, and the only reason you died was because you wiped. So that's good. So you get 11 points for that. You can also get a maximum of 11 points for DPS. Basically, as long as your name was on the DPS board, doesn't matter which position you were. If you're on the board, you got a point at the end when we wiped. Um, so the maximum score for a DPS player is 22. If you died, however, and the deaths only count if it was a death before mech phase. So basically, you would die into basic rotation or so forth. If you had one of those deaths, that's going to be a minus 2 points. And so, because we had 11 runs, you could technically have minus 22 points if you died in every single pool we had. Fortunately, no one was that bad. So for DPSO, highest was 22 points. Potential lowest would have been negative 22 points, which would have been very bad. No one got negative 22 points, fortunately. If you were a Mecro person, this time I gave Mecros just for the ball driving aspect of it. Technically, I gave Miyang 10 points for the bonus because she's tanking. That also means I could have subtracted 2 points every time she messed up driving or if she messed up range tank. So if you got range checked or drove badly, I would minus 2 points from that. But in the 11 runs I looked at, she didn't do that, so that was good for her. Ball driving, the same people as we had from last week. So if you completed the ball drive phase, you got a point. If you didn't, you got a minus point. Yeah. And so if you look at the what is it? The overall attempts, right? So I looked at 11 attempts. Red did really good. Good job, Cataracts. The only time the red one failed was because Cataracts was doing experiment, and that's the only time that it failed. But that one was because Cataracts went to go find the crystal thing. Blue did a lot better this time. compared to last week, it had close to about 50-ish% um, better. Still failed quite a bit though, but a lot of times, there are just unfortunate movement issues when I was watching, which definitely led to unfortunate things happening. Like one of them, was good, but then just mispositioned, and then the thing didn't go onto the missile, which was unfortunate. So, but otherwise, Blue did much better. Um, the last one I did look at was we did actually get to 6% phase, and we did actually complete the red phase, but we weren't able to complete the blue phase. And this was mostly because we didn't have the gear blockers and stuff assigned. So basically, there were no gears to do the mech, and there was no bubble either at that point. So it was definitely not happening. Um, so that's what we're primarily going to be going over today. Getting that part all fixed out, which is also going to set us up for the 35% phase, which is basically the same thing except with laser line. So yeah. So any questions about how last week went, um, scoring, so forth. I also put the mean score and standard deviation and so forth, just to get a better sense of your thing. Just know that if you were mech phase, oh, so technically if you were a mech roll and we got to phase every time, which didn't happen, the theoretical best score would have been 11, 10, 20, 44. So that would mean you literally never died, you were always on the board, and you did every mech you assigned perfectly, and you didn't get any minus points. So if you were mech roll, 44 would have been the max. But that being said, there are quite a few people did pretty well, despite that. So overall, pretty good. Overall, pretty good. Overall, also I noticed a lot less people were dying to um, base rotation, which was really good. We still have some people who were dying to base rotation, but most people were managing the damage a lot better than they were last week or the week before, in the first week when I looked at the videos. Um, a lot less overall damage. Just briefly looking at it, punishment was still the thing that killed people the most, um, and missiles. So missiles and punishment was one that hit people the most. We've also had people die to gears, which I'll discuss when we get to talk about the mechs after this. But other than that, everything else looks pretty normal. And at this point, I'm pretty sure everyone knows how to handle base rotation. It's just making sure that they don't screw up and so forth. Making sure their iframes or whatever needed and whatever else may be. So, um, yeah. So that was good. I didn't see any significant issues in base rotation, at least not on a raid level. Just maybe it's certain individuals stuck at certain things more than others. Okay. All right, so if there's no questions about that, we will move into the mech part. So let's share screen. Screen one. All right, can you see the slideshow thing? Okay, excellent. All right, so partway doing this, I decided that I'm gonna stop doing it and make like an animation thing instead, because I feel like that's a lot more efficient at doing this instead of making all these little pictures that don't move. So it's partially done because I'm just gonna work on the animation part after this part. So only part way done, but the important parts are covered. At least I made the picture for the important parts. So I'm gonna make a change to position slightly. As you notice, instead I'm gonna put Casey on red instead of blue, right? And then that means blue 4 is now gonna be back. Basically, uh, this one is red and this person is blue now. So this is how it was in week 1. Um, I think this is like Lucera, and I forgot who this was, but this is like Lucera, I'm pretty sure. So you're back to red. So all that's gonna mean is when we go into our positions, you just swap your thing again. So no problem. And that also means Tav and Casey are swapping their positions, meter positions by one. So that would give them the swap there. Everyone else still is in basically the same positions. Um, no problem there. Also, again, just as a reminder, melee people, except for the tank and who is at red 4, everyone else's deep melee DPS are in between the pizza slices, and the range are on the line. Right. This is just very important. If you do want to dodge punishments or star treks or whatever, you have this space, melee people, to go behind and front if you need to. The range will follow the line. So if you are a melee person, don't hug the line so much, simply because this is like your boundary. Um, range players, stick to your line. You know, you have a lot of freedom where you can move around, and you can technically move wherever. But when it comes to punishment and star strike, you need to make sure that you're dodging the star strike or punishment on the line or as close as possible in this position. Basically, you want to position yourself in between two melee players. So even when this boss is moving upward, right? Um, and the lines aren't going to match up, of course. You just want to be in between the melees. So when the melees go back and forth, if they have to, um, they're not going to bump into you unnecessarily. I have seen some of that happen. You know, people were like range melee or range were doing whatever they feel like. The SS bumped into each other accidentally and so forth, um, which can lead to other things being recipes down the line. So again, remember, except for this person, whoever's uh, blue 3, this person is going to be slightly off center, whichever side they feel comfortable with. Um, this is, I think, was usually Pew in the previous ones. So whatever you did, though, it looked good. Did I miss us? So I don't have any issues, whatever you're doing. But this is the only player who's kind of slightly off center to one side. And yeah, so that's going to be base rotation, or base positions. So the only change was I swapped the colors for this one. All right. So going into red phase, this is going to look a lot like week 1. So basically, red 5, blue. Okay, wait. Red 5, red 4, and red 3 are going to be at 6 o'clock. So this is going to be, I think, Luceria, Lux, and who's number 3? Cataracts, right? Is going to be baiting the gears again. So Pew, this just means like before, you're going to be moving over and making sure you don't clash with Luceria, who is going to be moving directly behind. Either let him move first and then you go, or move before he gets there. You can even pre-position yourself before this phase happens to move over, so that way Luster has clearance to get hit this point here. So however you want to deal with that, if you want to move before or after, just know that you do need to move away because the gears are going to come right to your face if you don't move. So my recommendation is to pre-position yourself here, past this line, at like past 8 o'clock line. That way, when phase happens, Luster can just go right back, and there's no one in the way. It's clear stuff. So. Spike or whoever was blue 2. Um, Same thing as before. You're going to be moving on upward to the 2 o'clock line to DPS. Um, Again, this is not going to be so important at red phase at 90%, but it is going to be important when we go to 65% when you have to bait your gear position, because you're going to have a slightly different gear position bait, and so forth. So this is kind of pre-positioning yourself so that you can bait it easier when that happens. Case position and change. No one else. Tav and Ray are still DPSing at its position. Myung is still tanking at 12. And number 4, basically they're just moving from here. They're moving on up to the 9 o'clock line-ish and DPSing here at range. Basically just to get out of the way and making sure there's nice space and so forth for people to DPS. Tav and Ray can technically move back here to the 10-meter line to avoid the knockback, or they press an iframe, whatever works. At this position, this area is safer. Ray, I'll be right behind you, so just watch out. And then same thing on Tav's case, Case will be right behind Tav. So as long as they're roughly in position, they shouldn't bump into each other. So it should be okay. Let's see, which is this? Oh no, this is the old one. No, this is not the old one. I just forgot to name the. This is the wrong name. Whatever. So once we go into phase, the position you went back is gonna be the same. So basically, what's gonna happen here is Cataracts will move up to get to the ball. I will be moving into position to guide it. Spike is still up here. Jinan hasn't moved. Myung hasn't moved. Tav hasn't moved. The Sir is going back to his DPS position at the 8 o'clock slice. Lux, instead of going to 6, is going to the 4 o'clock slice up here to make sure this is nice and spacious. Pew is going to basically DPS over here, and Yuya, whoever is blue 4, is going to DPS over here 9 o'clock still. Case is still going to DPS up here. That hasn't changed. Okay. Yep. So this is going to be for position 1 at ball driving phase. At the second position, no wait, the same one. Oh wait a minute, hold up. Could have swore I named these things better. I moved them around. Oh, here it is. Okay, I was in the wrong one. But anyway, this is the same picture as from before. So, okay, so this is gonna be the first part. At the second bounce, everyone's still in the same positions. Here we move to position 2, right here at 3 o'clock. I'm right here, and here's Cataracts. Everyone was still DPSing as before. Oh, I know what I did. Okay, wait, hold up. I didn't make the picture for the 90% phase because that one we already know how to do. I made the picture for 65% phase. Okay, we look at 65% phase because that's the one that we care about. That's what the pictures are for. All right, so 65% phase. The people who are going to bait the gears are going to be same positions as you had at 90%. So red 5, red 4, and red 3 are baiting the same positions. Here, Gina, who's blue 6, 2, which is Spike, and 1, which is me. And this is going to be our 65% and 35% phase gear bait positions. And this is just showing you one example of however the missiles may be positioned, but this is going to be how our gears are going to be placed out. Same as before, the 2 range players who are in this corner are basically just going to chill out back here in this area here, just to make sure that this and this gears get out nice and good. Tav and Ray, make sure that you back away. Make sure you aren't, even if you're close on iframe, just make sure your gear doesn't hit you. I still recommend to move back out, to the 8-meter line or whatever, just to make sure, or 10-meter line, so you don't get hit by anything, and then you can just come right back forward into it, DPS. We just don't want the gears to hit anyone because it did hit people in before. It hit Myung before, and basically kept the gear right there and destroyed them. So getting hit by gear will probably kill you. All right. Okay, so then we started to phase. So here we're going to go into the first part of red phase. So here you can see Cataracts went to step in a circle. Here in red 6, which would have been Casey, he's going to position himself to solo ball drive. And basically what's going to happen is, for the very first one, he's going to come in this angle. I'm going to play the video after to show this in motion, but I'm just going to talk about it first here, and then we'll watch the video after. Everyone else is going to be basically moving back to the positions they had before. Lucia will be moving back here. Careful, Lucia, that you aren't going to accidentally bump into Casey. You should get there faster. If you approach in this way, no one should be in your way. And if they are, they're not doing something right. So basically, Lucia and Lux can both move in and approach directly ahead. Same as before, though, Lux, because Cataracts come from this angle, as long as Lux approaches in at 6 and then moves in to 4, you'll be safe. But if you walk this way, Cataracts is moving toward this direction. So just be careful with that. Lucia should be able to go straight in as long as Pew is in the way. and then Casey will be moving from the 10 o'clock position down to the 8 o'clock position, assuming this was the orientation of the room. Again, when it switched around, it's everything but slightly tilted, and the only people who have to really think about are the ball drivers and the range. The melee people are going to be basically static, because this configuration will work in either configuration of the missiles. So, okay. So then after that, here's the next position, position 2. Here, if Casey does it correctly, the ball will go this direction, and it should be placed roughly right at the borderline between the second and third punishment ring from the missile, which will mean it won't pop, which is good. Everyone else is still DPSing, that's same as before. Here, the position is a little bit different because Casey has a 5-second stall. His position doesn't line up with the bubbles of me and Cadax, which are bouncing every second basically. So he's gonna basically be stuck here for a little bit longer than me and Cadax. So me and Cadax will already be in position 3 when this goes down. Next position. This is gonna be when Cadax got the last one. I'm trapping the ball. At this point, the ball would have already moved back to where he started from. So basically, the pattern for Casey would have been go here, 5 seconds, 5 seconds here, go back 5 seconds here. At this point, everyone's gonna need to position back to block these gears. And so at this point, the red players, Lucira, Ray, and Lux, are going to have to make their way to block these gears at this phase here. And so I can tell you right now that you need to be out here before punishment ends. You need to be here. So you probably can attack for the front back and then start booking it. Be more conservative at first, like book it out way earlier than you need to. Once you get the timing of how long it actually takes you, then you can start to realize when you can actually move out and so forth, and what's the easiest path. But I highly recommend that after the front back, just move. He's gonna do punishment, and at that point you need to get to your position. So leave by front back. I wouldn't even mind if you were just waiting here. Like as long as you can wait here and block these things from going through and you pass the phase, that would be more than enough for me. For now. Once we get better at it, then we can optimize DPS. But for now, very important that you use your body to block these gears. Now, another thing about the gear placement, make it closer to this line than to the water because this will knock them back. If it's too close to the water here, they are gonna probably get yeeted back into the water and die. So make sure these things are closer to this 10-meter line or 12-meter line than is to the edge of the arena. So give them space. These ones, the blue ones, these ones you want a little bit closer to the edge if possible. Simply because we don't have to block these ones. These ones will be suctioned in every time at the first phase. However, these ones need to be blocked, and so having them right about here-ish is going to be easier. I don't want to say right on the line because it's really hard to get them right there because people will be moving, but a little bit past maybe 16 meters to 17 meters is a good spot to pop these things down. Just as like 1 meter out of range of a ranged DPS's max distance. Let's see. So again, this is very important. Lucira, Lux, no, sorry, Lucira, Ray, Lux. Make sure that you are in here before this end phase. Keep in mind that if like Ray tries to run straight here, Myung is tanking here, so you're gonna get hit by a shotgun into your face. Wait for the shotgun to finish. Then use the punishment time to dodge and get into position. In Lux's case, because he has to move a little bit further, he may just want to book it and never go back. After he baits this thing, he just takes a long way around to get to his position. That might be a bit more efficient for him. And let's say the same thing. He could basically bait it and then the long way around to get here. I would actually just do that. We're just gonna have you set to do that. Right after you bait your gears, just book it on the outer edge, all the way. Blue 3 and blue 4, don't be at the edge here. Give space because there are gonna be people behind you walking around. Yeah. Same here, Spike. Take here. These kind of 60-meter ring here because it's gonna be Lux is gonna be traveling along the outer edge of the ring right behind you. The other good thing is if you are traveling on the outer ring, you won't get hit by punishment no matter what. Um, so play it safe, travel on the outer ring, and you don't gotta worry about anything. No attacks will hit you, so you can basically guarantee get to your position in time. The only one who gotta kind of worry is Ray, who has to kind of be careful of everything going around her. Okay, so assuming you did that correctly, the gears will still be here and they didn't fall off the map. And then what's gonna happen is Calyx, Ray has moved to DPS at 12 o'clock. Myung has already positioned herself at 6 o'clock. I've already in DPS position. Number 4 Lux has went back to DPS at 4. Myung is here. Spike, basically after he's finished his job and so forth, is going to go back to 4 o'clock to DPS. Basically, he's just going to get ready to end the phase where he'll end up at. Number 6, which is going to be Gina. She will have moved from her position, her gear baiting position, and would have already booked it to over here. Casey, who had just was finished playing with the ball, is going to move over here to start directing. So Casey will already been in this position. During phase, I have Gina set up here to DPS, but basically Gina can just slowly make her way around to 9 o'clock and just kind of wait here in DPS to eventually she moves into position, and so forth. So she has the entirety of the phase to move from here to here and pre-position. Lucira has finished the blocked. He comes around, comes back into DPS. Be careful, Lucira. If Gina has or has not moved in position, just be careful because Gina will be booking into this position when it goes down. So just be careful when you're moving around. Tav shouldn't have moved. He's AFK DPS, so he shouldn't be in the way. And Casey would have been over here playing with boss, so he won't be in the way either. Number 3 and 4 would just have moved over slightly to the right. Basically, just get out of the path of the ball drive here. Again, Pew, don't be right at 6 o'clock because remember that Myung is tanking here. So if you move here, you're going to get hit to a shotgun to your face. So wait for it to finish, then you can actually go back to DPSing here. Just kidding, don't do that. Flamethrower will happen after. Just stay here in DPS. Basically, as long as you're here, you won't get hit by shotgun and flamethrower, and you'll be safe. Same thing for Yuya. You're just going to be right next to Pew, DPSing, and so forth. This position's safe, nothing's going to hit you. Except, yeah, nothing can hit you. Let's see. Yep, so that's okay. Next position. Everyone's still DPS in the same spot. Here we moved on to second ball drive, so here's Gina and here is Casey directing. This will have been the final one. From this point onward, this is when Gina would just book it in, and Casey would trap the ball up here. Depending on how far these gears are, if the gears are far back, you can put the gear right here, or the last ball here. But if they're in the way, you can always go behind here. Just be very careful that you aimed very well through this entire part, because if you were off, like if you went like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that would actually screw up because what will happen is the ball will just go off the cliff and we lose. So this only works if you went 1, 2, 3, 4. If you drive it past this ring here and went here and here, this will be too far and you can actually make it go away. So be very careful positioning. If you stick to these positions, you won't lose. Me and Calyx have been doing this for a lot, all of our things, and it's worked quite well. But if you deviate from it and do like weird things like go here and here and here and here, whatever, you're gonna have rest in peace time. So let's see. So any questions about 65% and how that's gonna be handled? Good. All right. And so the only variant with the 35% phase is that there's going to be the little laser line, right? That cuts them into 4 quadrants. Um, Basically, whichever quadrant you're closest to is the quadrant you're gonna go in. So number 2, you can basically just pick this one. Like don't go just go closer to cataracts and Tav, since you're gonna be on this side anyway when this phase ends. So basically, just move it to this one. This one is over here. Um, you can pick whichever side you want to go to. Doesn't matter. Um, these people will be doing mechs, so it won't matter. I'll be stuff won't matter. Won't matter. So the only ones who have to think about which quadrant they have to be in is number 4. Basically, you can pick either one. Honestly, I would probably pick this one because it's probably nicer. Up to you. Um, I'll pick this quadrant and so forth. No problem. But other than that, everyone else should be already in position. The only one who has to think is Myung and Ray. Everyone else will already be in a quadrant. The ball driving at 35% phase is only a little bit different because they swap. However, the amount of bounces and so forth doesn't change. The only difference is you're bouncing within a quadrant. So you're just basically making like a little triangle pattern. Um, the ball driver at this point should be able to do this without issue. You can swap roles with your partner, and it shouldn't be an issue. Um, so the other thing I will say though is if you happen to be in the quadrant that has the final missile, the blue phase missile, it is 100% acceptable to just book it to another quadrant and say, I don't want to be here and go over here. You won't be at the DPS necessarily because of how tight the space is, but if it means we have enough the entire quadrant to do the mech, our chance of success goes way up. But if, like in this case, this was the final 35% phase and Tav was up here DPSing, and we have less space to move around, that's going to make it a lot harder for us to do the mech and so forth. So if you are in the quadrant that has a missile, book it to one that doesn't. Again, remember that the missile will only be in the top right or top left quadrants. So again, this is going to be like, what is this? Cataracts, Ray, and Tav are the ones who have to really think about your positions to make sure that you're not in the quadrant that has the missile when this goes down. But other than that, it is really much the same thing. So,
I have a question.
yes.
For 35%, the gear shouldn't be on that line, correct? The second gear? Because that would be a death zone, right?
Well, the gear gets placed before the phase, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
But we
so
still have to block it, right? From going off into the cliff?
Yeah, but this happens before that happens. The laser light happens after the end of the red phase. So this thing would have been done already. You already been moving and DPSing by this point.
Okay.
At least I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But we'll watch the video again just to make sure about that. But if it is the case, then I'll have to move this slightly. But it should be okay here. So, all right. Okay, anyway, any questions about this? 65 and 35%. They're basically the same, just slightly different with the laser line. Okay, we go into the video part. So in this part, we're going to primarily look at the ball driving position and so forth. This also gives a sense for everyone else where you will be, how much time and space you have in between each of the movements and how long this phase will last. So we'll just go right before. Oh, going before that actually. Okay. Okay, so then base rotation. Okay, so they hit phase very soon. Remember, this is going to be 2 sets of gears. Okay, he's in the air. You can see that both gear people are already setting the gears out, right? Nice and easy. Myung will again remember to come to 3 o'clock to make sure you're out of the way. At this point, yeah. At this point, both of the balls happen at the same time. So this is going to be no different for the 90% red phase, right? Our job is exactly the same. However, the red 6, which would be Casey, is going to have to book it to the blue bubble. Notice that this is right here to like kind of position yourself is the 12 o'clock part. And again, these are like the angles. Yeah, this is 2 o'clock. This is what this guy is facing is 4 o'clock. So look at the mini map and look at where the player is to figure out which clock this person is facing. Um, don't get confused by the orientation. Just look at where this guy is oriented. He's at 4 o'clock. So this is the 4 o'clock line right here. Also, this is the perspective of the ball driver, one of the ball drivers. So it's much easier to figure out. Go for it. So he would be basically doing what I would be doing. This is Cataracts, and over here is KC. So one thing to note here is notice that in the very beginning part, he enters from the direction he wants this thing to fire at. And so he's entering right from this 5 meter line. This is the direction he's aiming because he's aiming the ball this way, basically. Me and Cadex are basically doing the same thing. We're just going to our normal position, the 1, 2, 3, and 4. Well, this is the only extra thing. You also notice here, this will be Lucia, and here's Lux. As you can see, they're moving over to block their gear positions while this is going down. And then here's all the range, here's Spike DPSing in the corner here. Okay, so notice here, because he aimed this one correctly, this one did go inward toward the missile. And at this point, we're at position 2, which is backslash. So again, Casey would have to make sure he blocks this, otherwise he's going to get destroyed. Okay, this is all punishment, so he has to be self-iframed. Hopefully we have HM lock ready for this point. This is going to be the third bounce. Notice that the ball is going to land into the safe zone, so it won't pop. So at this point, the punishment is already past the ball. The ball is inward here. The next blue ball is going to go back to where it came from. And here we're finishing off the mech. Here's going to be the magnet storm. And again, all of the red players had to be in position to block their gear. You can see them already up here. You can look at the minimap, you can see them moving into position to block this gears, because once this thing goes out, it's going to push those things off. Okay, so here's a third. And here's Magnetic Storm. So you use the punishment as the guide for when you have to be here. Because this is the fastest it could possibly go is with 3 bounces, right? And that's going to be a punishment. So you have to be blocking your gears by punishment. If you go out at punishment, it's too late. You have to be blocking gears before punishment finishes, because that will be the fastest this thing can possibly go out. Notice that while this is happening, Magnetic Storm usually happens at the start or in the middle of Flamethrower. If we screw this up though, then you have a little bit more seconds, but hopefully we did it and it goes at that time. Okay, so notice that they got knocked back, and now I'm not sure why it pushes them forward. I'm not sure if that's because of the positioning or because that's how it happens when they get pushed in. I haven't done it myself, so I wouldn't know. But we'll be experimenting that tomorrow exactly, and how to make sure that you don't get jumped off the map. So we'll go back one step. So here, kind of going back to the third position. If Casey does it correctly, he will be able to direct it back to here. To aim it, his positions will be right on the line here, as you can see. This should be okay because Ray and all the melees should be out here blocking the missile or blocking the gears in position for it. So there shouldn't be anyone here when this is going down. Yeah. And he's also holding the ball right after phase. So after the first bounce, he actually directs his own ball to the first position of the other spot here. At this point, if it goes on him, he's going to trap the ball while he's icicled. There's also extra part here is, I haven't verified it, but there's a good chance that because he gets that little white thing, he may or may not get damage to this little super attack. I haven't tried it out. That or the personal iframing, I'm not sure. So he may need a personal iframe for that, or it may be okay. Not sure, but we will see. This part is kind of extra tricky because what happens is, if we can do it this way, what's going to happen is the ball will actually bounce back this way, and so the spacing is going to be exact same as um, a 90% phase, where you have 1, 2, 3. If they didn't do this and made it go inward, they would have to do something like 1, 2, 3, come back, or something like that, which may or may not be a little bit more tricky than it has to be. But the way they did it was they basically made it go here, bounced it back this way, so you can start at position 1, 2, 3. So I don't know if this is necessarily easier, but it is quite nice how they did it that way. So there's a first. So notice how they timed it so it's going to be exactly the same as before. This would have been position 2. This is position 3, the final one, where they would be able to trap it. Okay, so he traps it. Magnetic Storm. Again, notice that the timing was right at the start of Flamethrower. They finished the Magnetic Storm, which is your 3 bounces you get. Okay, Magnetic Storm went off. At this point, everyone needs to move into your meter positions. Again, very important that you're moving into meter positions. So while this is going down, the people who melee who are out there, you use that time to basically get back into your DPS positions. And then note that right after that, once Flamethrower goes out, you need to move back onto your meter positions to make sure you get remarked correctly. So depending on how much time you have, you may or may not have much time to DPS. Again, at first, I don't care if you DPS or not, just make sure you get your right colors so we can move on to 35% phase progression. So we can optimize DPS after, but only once people got the timing down for the movement. Until then, don't risk by DPSing, just make sure you get 2 meters. Okay, so that's end of phase, and they get the new colors. Okay, so we're gonna skip ahead to 35%. Okay, that's close enough. Okay, so it's only gonna get phase. You can see that these people are already moving out of positions. They already knew it was gonna happen. Okay, same before the blue and red gears position. Okay. Again, notice that the red gears are a little bit closer to the boss. These blue gears can be a little bit further back. Again, as long as you're not up here, me and Calyx will make do. But again, you want to make these blue ones at 6 o'clock, the melee ones, to be a little bit further back if possible. Just to make sure that this area is clean to walk. But the red ones can be up here, closer to this line. The start exact same as 65%. Notice that the ball driving, the pushing inward again, and this one's still going same as before. Again, this person's this person iframe all these attacks because he's still getting hit by punishments. You don't get hit by punishment because he's gonna get a debuff stack, so make sure your person iframing that. Should be HM block though, but have a person already. Okay, he's going back to position where he started. These people are already positioned to block the gears. So this time it's a little bit different. Right, so remember that the only difference is we're gonna have the laser lines and we're gonna get an inverse buff. Okay, so here, reverse polarity. Again, notice that the laser line stuff happened before this stuff happened. So this polarity thing happened after the push stuff, so you should be okay putting it at 12. So notice what they did for this one is once they moved it here, they started basically moving it up to here, and they're gonna make a weird triangle shape. Everyone else is still doing a base rotation. Keep in mind that the back swipe and everything else is still happening. You just have to be very careful with your positioning. Make sure you're giving yourself space. Again, remember that because the colors swapped, this would mean that red That means Casey is the one stepping in the puddle and Gina's directing. Wait, no. Red. Yes. Yes. That's that one. Okay, because the person who's matching color steps in. The person who's opposite is the one directing it. Okay, they trap it. All right. Next step will go off. Again, is right at flamethrower. Okay. Phase is going to end. Everyone else gets into meter positions. Actually, know about this one. Technically, if you are in meter positions, it's not super bad. However, it is super bad because your colors may be the same or opposite of what your opponent, which your partners were going to be, and that will basically make it so you get knocked back instead of when you should have been suctioned together. So it is still very important that you get your meters, make it safe, make this phase nice and easy, because the only way you will wipe at this part is because you missed up the missiles. And because people were like the same colors and potatoed out, what will happen is they'll bump into each other, bump into someone else, and start causing wipes this way. So you still need to get your meter colors. Um, yeah. But again, because we're not using the colors for phases or anything like that, it doesn't actually matter what you have. Just note that if your partner is the same color as you, you are going to take a knockback. So make sure when you position yourself in a way that you don't get destroyed. Again, the way we have it set up is because we have the melee go to the range. Even if this happens, you won't, the melee person gets pushed forward, this one goes back, nothing happens. The only case where it's rest in peace is if Gina and Myung are the same color, and then they bump in and Myung gets thrown out and so out of position, then it can cause some rest in peace things. So other than that, as long as everyone is moving out like they should, the melee go to the range. Even if you have the same color as your partner, you should still be okay. But just be extra careful. Everything else happens the same as before. Look at those guys get bumped into each other. From this point onward, it's home free. The only thing that will wipe you is the missiles. So be very careful when we get to this phase that you aren't, don't get sloppy here. It would be a very big shame if you got sloppy at the last, 15% of the boss fight. Um, just because there's no more mechs doesn't mean you can't die. You absolutely can die. Again, because we don't have any soul fighter summoners, if you're dead, you are out of the game. And we cannot afford to have anyone dead. It just won't work. So you need to be alive the entire fight, the entire thing. Um, Even if you die and like res back, I saw like Yuya and Lucia were able to do that, which is good. But basically, because of how much time it takes for them to do that, the DPS loss is quite significant. Taking yourself out of the fight for 40 seconds is, quite a long time. Because it takes you like 15 seconds to get out there and 20 seconds to get up. So basically, you can't die. If you want to clear this, no one can die. Um, which is why I'm very strict with the, counting deaths and so forth, making sure we don't have anyone dying to things that they shouldn't, or whatever. Um, yeah. So on that note, coming this week, hopefully everyone does very well. If certain players are not performing as they should, I will making replacements to try other players out. There have been a few raids that have already disbanded, and yeah, so there's more players floating around that we can take. And some have already asked me if there was space and whatever. But for tomorrow, we'll go with the same roster that we had in previous weeks. But just know that if people aren't improving, if people are still, dying to a lot of things, they can't complete the mechs or whatever, I am probably going to switch out some players. At this point, everyone knows exactly where they stand. I post their scores. They know how much their survival rate is and so forth. So, you know, yeah. But there's a chance to do well. Chance to do well. So, any questions about that? Good then. So that's the main thing I wanted to go over. You don't need to go over basic rotation. You don't need to go over 90% phase. Just went over 65 and 35% phase. Um, yeah, the first half we're going to be having uh, me and Cadex and Kesey and Gina do ball driving. If that isn't working very well and we're not hitting past 65% phase, then I'm probably going to make a adjustment and potentially look into doing a 3-man ball drive phase. But we will see how well Kesey does tomorrow. But basically for the first half, it'll be, and if that doesn't work or it's not working and we can't get past 65% phase, then I'm going to switch it up a little bit. But I'll probably be talking to Gina and Cadex after that for that variation. But yeah. Okay, well, if there's no questions, that's technically the end of the official meeting. Um, if you want to hang around or talk about more about mechs and so forth, you're more than welcome to. For everyone else, we have rated an hour. So